Well,
reasons.
and for people like myself too, where I don't have any fucking money to begin with, you can bet fucking $1 if you want, or $5, make some insane parlay and still win like fucking.
Sure. You're like, and then all that you need to do is hit one 8-leg parlay when you bet $2, and 6 months later your rent check is gone. That's what would happen to me, I think.
There's been studies done. I agree. I've read them. Gambling triggers more of the addictive centers in the brain than heroin.
Oh yeah. I was going to say, like, you can't.
And that's a fact. You can look that up.
You can't. I just can't imagine. I haven't done heroin.
Neither have I. I don't think anybody's directly done heroin yet.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave that there.
Oh, the old brown hornet.
Yeah, it'll sting you, but nobody's chosen it.
So
I'm allergic to heroin. It makes my stomach hurt.
good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Week 8 and a special episode of Crossfire on the Heat Check.
Heat Check!
We are here with a panel of experts to discuss the pressing matters of the day. First and foremost, our visiting guest, Mr. Nicholas Baranowski. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing all right. Enjoying the weather. It's great here in October. Getting ready for Halloween.
It is quite temporal indeed. You have also brought with you Jess Gross. How are you this evening?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And last but not least...
What? Oh, wait a minute. What's up, shitheads? It's me, your boy, the #1 fuckboy from Northampton County, $1,000 town. Dan rather be fucking. I work at the Lava Factory, the top Pornhub commenter. I'd go as far as say New York City is a character on this podcast. Ryan Howells.
Thank you. And now, without any further ado, we need to get into some of the pressing issues that the public and indeed our focused audience have been clamoring to find out answers to. And so it is. We turn to you, Mr. Baranowski. When last we heard from you, we had just concluded the Super Funhouse Fantasy 2 Turbo 2024 draft, and you were asked about your highest value pick, and you said that it was Jalen Hurts, whom you picked 12th overall in the first round. How are you feeling about your answer now as we are halfway through the fantasy season?
Well, as an Eagles fan, I got to keep it real and see, what I see on the field. He certainly didn't turn out to be probably my strongest pick. I expected him to, based on the previous seasons, of course. And again, my bias as an Eagles fan with that, is definitely going to creep in. But no, it ended up. No, not really being him. There's been quite a fluctuation, actually, of characters who should have been at the beginning. We're talking about Marvin Harrison, who ended up being so, as we all expected. Then we got concussion, of course, just like seems to be the theme with everybody this season.
There certainly seems to have been more than average the number of multi-week injuries plaguing everybody in the league. Certainly not immune. I did just want to read off, though, on the matter of players not injured at any point, in fact, so far this season, who were chosen in the round after you selected Jalen Hurts. Immediately the pick afterwards, Derrick Henry, who has to date posted 160 fantasy points. A few picks after that, 22nd overall, Josh Allen, 139 fantasy points. All this compared to the 116 points put up by Jalen Hurts.
This is where fantasy is my weakness in a way, where because of my passion for certain teams, such as the Eagles, the bias does get in the way a little bit of my decision making.
Oh, too true. I reach every single year for the Steelers defense and special teams. Although I just said that, like, okay, neither Derrick Henry or Josh Allen got injured, you can argue that Jalen Hurts was affected by injury far more.
Indirectly.
In the sense that, yes, without Devonta Adams or A.J. Brown for multiple weeks, and perhaps most importantly, without Jason Kelce at all.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'd say 100% Jalen was indirectly injured, so to speak, I'll call it, when he doesn't have those options to use and is running the football a lot more, which we should.
I thought it was going to be a much starker difference when I went to compile those stats. I mean, the fact is that Josh Allen has only put up 23 more points than Jalen Hurts, which is not a small amount, but it's not a huge amount either. And it's reasonable to think that, had he had, his top two receivers and his top tight end to throw to a few more times, all of this might have been opened up and we might have matched or exceeded
That's
that.
fantasy points right there. I mean,
Yep.
obviously we don't get much, obviously, up the road for that.
So we'll say that decision is very defensible. Let's move on to the next question. Number one fuckboy.
Your constituents would like to know what exactly was Jess's strategy in drafting your team?
Heat check.
Well, she only really knew who Saquon Barkley was, and after Danno picked him, we kind of, she knew who Jalen Hurts was, and she knew I loved him. So of course, you're gonna play on my heartstrings like that. I gotta go with it.
Jess, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to be honest. I think it sounds great.
Well, Mr. Baranowski, one more question for you. This comes from absolutely trustworthy single source information from Telegram. What is the nature of an elaborate scheme that you have masterminded involving the movement of Home Depot day laborers from the continental United States to the Russian frontline operation against the Ukrainian coal mining hub of Vuhledar?
Well, as a Polska, we're getting sick of pushed around by the fucking Russians anyway. So if you can't beat them, join them, I say. And I mean, I think we're all sick of our tax dollars being wasted to support the Ukraine for fucking laundered money, right? So why not, like I said, if you can't beat them, join them. So, I'm just recruiting General IQ homies from Home Depot. You know why? Because I know they can labor. I know they can fucking take a beating. All right, we test that. They can lift 75 pounds or more on a daily basis. So I think, that's we're just looking out for number one.
Interesting. What was your personal compensation for this scheme?
Just the general good feeling that the polls will rise again.
So just out of the goodness of your own heart, and in no way did you line your pockets through an elaborate mercenary human trafficking operation.
That much I can't say or say for sure, sir. I can't speak on that matter one way or the other, but what I can say is our people are feeling great about it. Everybody loves what's going on, and we're going to continue our support.
Well, I'm happy to say that on this year's episode of Crossfire, we have drilled down even further into even truer things and gotten even more facts. With that, I would like to thank our panel of experts. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Best Boy Grip number one fuckboy. We will see you next year on the Crossfire. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to week 8 on the Heat Check. Well, that was a lovely little break we just had there. We can't just always be fun and games on this show. There are times, when we actually have to get serious and dive into the things that matter. And now that we've done that, let's dive into the things that Mark. It doesn't matter! Anyway, let's recap the stuff from the week. First and foremost, we designated last week as the game of the week the battle between Dion and Clayton. And we've been pretty good about picking these games of the week in terms of them turning out to be real exciting and close. First, you had me and Delajuan coming to within a fraction of an inch. And now, this week, you had a real exciting... I personally hate the Monday night doubleheader bullshit that they do, but there was Dion sitting something like 45 points ahead as they had just a few skill players. They had Baker Mayfield. I said Curtis Mayfield. Isn't he like a trumpeter or something? Baker Mayfield getting 3 garbage touchdowns during the Ravens' beatdown of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. James Conner putting up all kinds of yards in that game against the Chargers, and Dion could only compensate with a solid but not spectacular outing from Trey McBride. Wasn't enough, and Clayton managed to clinch a fairly convincing victory, 144 to 125. Did you guys enjoy the chat as much as I did?
I read most of it the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
But I thoroughly enjoyed, I woke up to 36 notifications, I believe it was, or something like that.
Well, the thing that I think was probably the most entertaining for me was the fact that Clayton has become a fairly shameless reverse jinxer at this point. He's been doing it like every year. He's like, well, my team is, not so great, I'm sure. Last week, he was like...
I'm actually preparing myself to lose in the next 3 weeks.
And Dion and Clayton were actually both trying to counter jinx each other. Like, during the course of the game. Like, no, you got it in the bag, man.
Yeah, I think every week Clayton self-deprecates into winning.
Right. We'll get to this later, but I gotta work on my own self-deprecating strategy. Nick and I faced each other last week in week 7, and I scored the lowest points in a win this week, prevailing 94 to 81.
That was something too.
Yeah, Nick, you had some thoughts on your players in this game.
That it's just frustrating. Again, I'd like to first we're gonna get this out of the way right away. Fucking Javonte Williams, my God.
Your 5th round pick.
I know, and I have faith, and he puts up numbers, he can play, but
he has done
real quick.
Last week he did.
Real quick, let's talk about the inconsistency from week 1.
Yeah.
3, 11, 6, 10, 16. Okay, we're heating up. 4. Then we go, all right, then I put him on the bench against Danno because I'm like, all right, dude, I can't take this inconsistency. 26 points. You add all those things up on the bench. I added them up. I would have won that game.
On that subject,
I'm going to keep an eye on Javonte.
It's fair to mention that Dion once again picked the wrong quarterback. Oh, we've got the favorite neighborhood bartender, Derek. How are you doing this week?
What are you guys doing?
We're doing well. Now, let's see. I wanted to talk about you had the Ascendant Migs last week. How'd that go?
Yeah, well, it would have been more competitive if I didn't get around 10 total combined points from C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, and Sam Laporta.
Oh my God.
That hurt pretty bad.
Four targets for Tank Dell, 0 points.
Yep.
Well, nothing to do but get back on the horse.
Yep. Plenty of football to go.
That's right. Just as I said before, just the midpoint of the season. So let's see. This week it's you versus Nick right here. Looks like there's probably some injuries / buys.
I still haven't moved Jonathan Taylor off the bench yet either.
I see here that Jameson Williams, of course, was suspended recently.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why not?
For a couple weeks, so that's something you're gonna have to attend to.
Let's put him on the bench.
So, interesting fact I learned today, there are no buys in week 8.
Really?
And no buys in week 12, I believe.
All right, I just bumped it up to 55% because I put Jonathan Taylor in instead of Jameson Williams. But we'll
All
see.
right.
All right, let's go Texans D then.
We've got a contest. Thank you, Derek. Down in the cellar.
It's official.
If I'm not mistaken, there has been no change.
You
I
suck.
believe we've got Mark, who just had shag carpeting installed on the 12th spot, and I mean, nothing from Lorenzo yet,
We out
but
here.
he's got to be measuring the 11th spot for some drapes or something. You know, he's starting to approach that territory. So we'll see. Haven't heard from Lorenzo. He did reach out to me this week though, saying that he wants to either appear or at least call in very soon, because he's got thoughts and he needs to give voice to them. I mentioned this in the chat, but if I do win the league and Mark loses the league, I'm planning to have my 4-course meal. Every single course will be a Bloody Mary, and it'll just have like different course appropriate garnish in it. Like the entree, I'm thinking is just an entire Cornish game hen on like a stick in the Bloody Mary.
A dessert Bloody Mary should be interesting.
That's the one. I was like, oh, what's the dessert gonna be? What is a dessert Bloody Mary? And you know what? Hopefully we get to find out. I hope so anyway. I want to talk about a game now that we should feature this week, and I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because of how badly I'm going to lose. I mean, I'm unquestionably going to lose this game by 70 points as the Fun World Order goes off against the Dire Funksters. Although this is a matchup of two 7-0 teams, the propensity for ubiquitous failure is just laced throughout my lineup. Even though, I mean, Saquon Barkley, who's normally such a bright spot, he's still going to be tired, undoubtedly, from all the running he had to do last week. There's going to be regression there. I have now just recently repopulated both of my IR spots. I have questionable injuries all over the place. I don't know. I'm reduced to having to put Malik Neighbors in there against a Pittsburgh defense, which I don't know, man. They have more interceptions, I think, than Daniel Jones has touchdowns. I mean, can either of you take a look at this and tell me if you know how I'm wrong here?
This is definitely getting a week. Yeah, I mean, what did you
Well,
mark
that's real
it?
tight too. Though. You have your starting lineup set already?
There's probably going to be a little bit of tinkering, but it's close to where it'll be.
A lot of hot names. Saquon Barkley, man. I gotta say for you, dude. I think you heard it here first. Saquon Barkley is gonna run all over the world against Cincinnati. You're gonna get. I'm projecting 28 points out of Saquon Barkley.
Very bold. I mean, look. In more bad news for me, he's got George Pickens in there. George Pickens, who he offered to me in trade twice, and who I rejected twice, and who finally scored his first touchdown last week. And for those of you who remember last year, every time Kenny Pickett threw a touchdown to George Pickens, I did a pickleback. So I did half of a pickleback. I did like half of a shot. And Sage was really confused about how to charge this. I was like, just charge me for the whole thing, and just like if he scores 2 touchdowns, I'll get the other half. But it was because they have to like deal with like the bottle like levels and stuff, and it was very confusing. So they have to make like a new like order designation called a Pickens back, which I found very funny. But I mean, the point is that in comes Russell Wilson, who fucked my fantasy team last year or 2 years ago, and now he's actually going to like be this revitalizing force for the Steelers against this hapless Giants team. And Pickens probably going to get like 3 fucking touchdowns or something.
Why and when about what piqued your interest in Caleb Williams putting up numbers?
I went all in on rookies during the draft.
Okay.
I was just like, well, here's.
I like what he's doing. It took him a while.
It took him a while to get there. But they were like, yeah, it's him, and there was also some like dark horse rumblings about Jaden Daniels. Both of them have been pretty good. I'm starting to though, like with Daniels' injury and Caleb Williams kind of like starting to put it together. I think I'm getting into Dion territory of getting my starting quarterback wrong every week, which I guess is a great problem to have. More reviews have come in, and the best boy grip. You've identified another one, and you'd like Nick to read it.
We have a submission here I'm looking at by Elongated Muskrat. What could be said about this podcast that hasn't been said about a dumpster fire? Miggs boasting that he picked up Aaron Rodgers is like gloating, yo, I got laid, but I picked up an STD on the side. The only thing that saved last week's episode was Dion's impressions. Tell you what, would listen again, 5 stars.
Hey! Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Miggs, for your Rogers fluffing, and Dion for your farleying. That really saved the production and had us go out there on a high note. So yes, I encourage other listeners, if you think you got the chops and above all the appreciation, please write us a review, and perhaps somebody here will read it with absolutely zero notice. Anybody got any light items or other notes that they want to throw out there before we get out?
No, other than the fact that, like we talked about before, about I saw Kareem Hunt floating around there on the waiver.
Yes.
Not even the waiver. I think he was just up for claims, to be honest with you. And I was like, what the I was like, we all know Kareem Hunt. So, I checked out what was going on.
And we all know how the Chiefs do with rentals.
Right. But he's in between teams. We all know how my record's going. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? Let me, I'm going to bet on the kid here. Let's pick him up. Let's see if he lands. And he did. RB1, Kansas City. Ref's favorite team. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
And let's tune in. I'm going to check back in. I might even want to try to get back here on Saquon Barkley's 28 points that game.
Okay. You heard it from Nick first. And we'll review his fearless prediction next week. Anything from you, fuckboy?
I just want to say it was a pretty rough week for the number one fuckboy against Olajuwon.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like Survivor Series 94, Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund. Got put in a crossface chicken wing.
Oh man, we could say the fuckboy met the D.
The fuckboy got the D this time. But the number one fuckboy is coming back this week. Coming back for revenge. I'm gonna get my belt back.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when Papa Shango gave the Ultimate Warrior appendicitis and fucking threw up everywhere and they're wheeling in the back? Like, we don't know what's going on. Dude, I was like, because the Ultimate Warrior was my man back in the day.
And that was that? Oh no, it was Warriors feud with the Undertaker that led to the amazing trio of Jake the Snake Roberts promos. I encourage anybody to look those up on YouTube. It's pretty peak Jake the Snake.
Love him.
Won't you come and see how the devil's work is done?
Jess, anything you want to add before you get out?
No.
Beautiful. All right, well, with that said, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Good luck in the games, and we'll see you next week.